say hypothetically we roll into next year, and this is just me spitballing, but Lions, Wallabies lose 0-3, just say, for example, roll into the World Cup, boys don't make the finals around. What happens to Australian rugby after that?
Right, like,
Is that the end of it?
Yeah, I probably don't even want to think about that, man, because, like, if that happens, like, yeah, I think it's not that it'll be the end of it, like, because the Wallabies will still exist, like, there'll still be rugby teams that will still exist, but the game as we know it, which is already in a really tough space, it'll be all but gone, you know. What do you think about the flow-on effect? Think about, I watch, like, some documentaries and stuff, like, all the time. You take one animal out of an ecosystem and that whole ecosystem collapses. So if you think about the Wallabies, you take the Wallabies or Australian rugby out of this ecosystem, what happens to the All Blacks?
That was kind of going to be my next question.
Yeah. What happens to because South Africa jumped out of Super Rugby and they play in Europe. So you take Australian rugby, or like Super Rugby, you collapse that. Now what's going to happen with New Zealand? Because they're so far away from everything.
Could you make a really strong New Zealand competition? And
they already have a really strong New
so
Zealand.
Like, say, like 10 of the 30 Wallabies go over and play for Crusaders, or like that almost becomes, it's very small, you know what I mean? It almost comes like the EPL of club rugby.
Yep.
Could that happen? Because I know the French comp is super strong.
You could definitely do that.
Yeah.
But now would guys want to go over and live in New Zealand? Like,
yeah, when you live over here.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a interesting thing, because one of the aspects of playing in, so I went and stayed in Bordeaux.
Go play in South Island or the south of France?
That's where I'm leading to, bro. It was like, so Ben Tapwai, one of my best friends, I went and stayed with him for like 3 or 4 days in Bordeaux, and he's our age, and he's still playing really well, playing over in the south, in France at Bordeaux, in a great city, beautiful place. And we were talking about like the game as a whole, right? Now, the beauty of playing over there and being able to come back and play for the All Blacks or the Wallabies or whatever it is you play with the French, you play with guys who play for South Africa. I was talking with him and Khaleesi about it. And you actually get an insight into what makes these guys tick, into how they see the game. So like me and Khaleesi talking about the behind the lines with South Africa, I'm like, shit, that's super interesting. That's something that we don't do in Australia. Or
one of you guys will.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? So it's like, now you're around Khaleesi, you're around the Irish boys, you're around the French guys. Well, exactly. So then when you go back and play for Australia, you've iron sharpens iron. So you've been around these guys every day. You see what they do every day. You hear stories about what South Africa did, about what France do, about how they play, why they do certain things. Now, being able to take that back to your country, it's invaluable. Now, if you go back to the model you just spoke about, and like you isolate yourself even further, you only know what you know. So you only know the way that you guys do it. So you have no real insight into what these other countries are doing. So now you go into a game and you might have the best style of play at the minute, and everyone's trying to sort of copy you, but they're going to figure out their own rendition of it. They're going to figure out, okay, I'm going to take what the All Blacks are doing, but we're going to add our spice. And then that becomes the way of playing. Now, because you're so isolated, what do? You know, so like there's no like second option. So I think that's really not the way to go. They got to figure out a way to work this all out. But when Super Rugby was South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia, like we were speaking about it in Khaleesi, and we said, those are the days. Like the games were hard. You played against South Africa, you had this really physical game. Then you go over against New Zealand, you got like a physical, fast game. Then the Australian derbies were just like grinds. But then the way that they viewed us, it was like really hard to play against the Australians. You play against New Zealand, it was ultimate because it was physical and like a super fast way of playing. So that competition, that's why those three teams were 1, 2, and 3 in the world consistently. So I remember one time we were 3, we got our way up to 2, we had a game against the All Blacks, and then we could have got to 1, we lost. So we're staying there, like we're in reach of it. Now South Africa gone, we're just playing in this comp. Like you look how far we're sort of slowly dropping down, and other teams are coming up.
Yeah.
So you introduce these teams like Fiji. See, as good as it is having these guys, and like I think that it's great having Fiji and that in there. But if I think about this, if I'm thinking like International Rugby and that, they don't really want these teams, that they invest a little bit into them, but they should be investing more into them. But for them, it doesn't make sense for Fiji to keep beating Australia, to keep beating these big teams, because the small Pacific Island nations not bringing in any money. So it's like they're never going to invest properly in these places, because they're just going to keep taking individuals. They're going to use it as a breeding ground for them. They say that they're investing money.
Yeah. They want to get like Radraja over to.
Yeah. They don't want Radraja playing for Fiji. They want them playing in France and that. So it's like, but having like the Drua and Super Rugby, you see how much like guys who are just guys playing on the islands, the talent and the skill that they've got. Japan are doing something similar with the Pathways program that they have, which is giving great opportunity for guys to come through and play for Japan. But yeah, like I think that all this talk around
that is a bit of a trip out when you watch the Japanese side, and it's like big Fijians, and he was like, they do them with Japanese to me.
Yeah, it's crazy, bro.
Guns too.
There's some crazy talent over there. Yeah, bro.
So what do you reckon say let's put our hat on towards the future, what do you reckon the 3 big leagues are going to be club-wise? Do you think it's going to be Viva's English, the English comp, the French comp, and probably Japanese comp?
I don't think the English comp.
Are they going down too?
Yeah, they're struggling. Like they're struggling, but I think they've had a little bit of a comeback. Like they've increased their salary cap and that. But the English comp is like a good comp. Like there's good footy in that play, but because it's privately owned, like it's up and down. Like there's a lot of bad stuff that's happened to a lot of players at clubs, just clubs shutting down, and like owners.
London Wasps are gone.
Yeah, the Wasps are gone. London Irish, and guys are just left without jobs. Like let's imagine going into training Tuesday, Wednesday a day off, and you go back Thursday and there's no club anymore. Like you've got your whole family, house, everything, and now you've got to try and find a gig somewhere. Like that happened to, think of the list of players, like say 40 players, countless staff. Like I'd hate to know how many staff, and like it's really difficult for staff as well.
Yes. Like Brad Shields from Hurricanes, he was over there for a bit. Wasps went into administration.
Yeah.
So like he's scratching around for a contract.
Exactly, bro. So it's like it's a really interesting time, like over there in England. The French comp's like really strong. Same thing though, like they're
do they have like private owners like backed as
So it's all the same. Like they're all billionaires who own the teams, but also the league is making a lot of money through TV rights. Like rugby's their number 2 sport, So like I don't know the population of France, but there's a lot of people watching the game. The TV rights is good. The competition's super strong, man. Like I watched Bordeaux play in their last game of the season, and as I said, I was watching this game, and as I was watching the game and the level that they were playing at, even in the warm-up, I was like, okay, like maybe I want to play another year at this level, Like it's super fun playing in Japan, but when I saw that level and that competitive side came out again, I was like, oh shit, it is a different level. But to answer your question, in the future, the Japanese league, the French league, and then there's a huge question mark over what could happen
down here.
Because the reality is it was only less than 10 years ago that this is the best comp in the world. So Super Rugby was the best comp in the world, and now it's not. It's not even the top 2. So.
Can you see like almost like a Champions League style thing happen with clubs? Because that's what I was thinking, where like say you get the best 2 teams from each country, say Crusaders, Blues, Brumbies, Reds over here.
What happens, because they're the 2 best, right?
Yeah.
So what happens to the rest? So then like they've still got to make money somehow. And so in Europe.
So sort of have the like national competitions, like you said here. New Zealand has that. The two best go on into a pool, go play somewhere. Then that rolls into international.
There's just heaps of problems with that, in my opinion, because it's always your best players who are just playing so much more rugby, and they're just getting burnt out. And the bottom guys are not doing anything, so they're always just on break. So then the clubs go, oh, well, we're going to make you train to get our money's worth because we pay you all year round. So one of the things that they do in Europe is they have the European Cup, and then they have the Champions Cup. So it's like the top half of the table in Europeans Cup, bottom half are in Champions. So they still have like a second tier competition. So if you're going to do that competition, as you said, you just go like top 5, bottom 5, and have a second tier comp. But it's just travel, man. So I think if they do that, have a Europe, like an Asia Cup sort of thing. So it's like Super and Japan, get the top and bottom, play in a tier 1 and a tier 2 comp, so you can still win trophies. Like there's a system like that might be viable. I know that they're doing something in Saudi with
saw that,
like Six Nations and like the Rugby Championship.
Yeah.
So they do it's kind of like a mini World Cup type thing.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, that'll be super cool to watch because it's like the best teams and the best teams from like Europe.
Yeah, because I always say this about international rugby versus international league. Like international league is just the NRL.
Yeah,
they just throw guys in different uniforms that are aligned with like nationality, which is great. And realistically, maybe the Samoa Tonga game is the one that people watch. But you look at the international game of rugby union, it's like you might not see these guys have the chance to play each other for a long time. You know what I mean? And the way Ireland play rugby, which is the best to watch, versus the way England play rugby when they come down there and challenge the All Blacks, it's always really interesting because the styles of play are so different.
The dynamic of players and that dynamic of different teams, and that's sort of the other part is around what's it called? The British Irish Lions play against like a hybrid All Blacks Australia team or All Blacks Australia South Africa.
I would pump him.
Yeah, but it'd be sick to watch.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it'd just be like, because see, you say straight away, I will pump them. Yeah. You say that in front of an English person, I would say, fuck off, mate. Like, you know, like there's no way that you beat us. But it's like, that's the reason why it's interesting, because it's like conversation, you know, and the idea of it. But yeah, bro, like there's so many different ways and avenues, and that's the upside of rugby is it's a world game.